Yeah, welcome everybody. The Marijuana Times Show. I'm your host, Joe Klare. It's December 8th, 2017. Fortunately, find myself and many other great writers over at marijuanatimes.org covering all the latest in the cannabis community and industry, what's going on with legislation and more. You can also find these videos, the Marijuana Times Show, at marijuanatimes.org. You can share them with your friends on social media or your friends in real life. If you have their email address, send it to them. Or share them on your phone or whatever. Thanks everybody for listening, everybody who likes and comments and all that stuff. Thank you. Make sure you check out the Marijuana Times on Apple Podcasts as well. It's now an audio podcast for you on the go. Just search the Marijuana Times on Apple Podcasts. And well, you can check us out on there. Like I said, little Marijuana Times show on the go. Today we're talking about guns, and more guns. Yes, all the stories that I have today are all about guns and medical marijuana and marijuana legalization. But first, of course, I want to tell you the Marijuana Times Show is brought to you by naturesidecannabis.com. If you're a cannabis cultivator in a legal state like Colorado, California, Oregon, Washington, anywhere where legal cannabis cultivation is done, you need naturesidecannabis.com. Not only do you want to sell your customers safe, as it says right there, safe and poison-free cannabis that won't harm them, that is not full of harmful chemicals. Also cannabis that will meet regulatory hurdles or leap regulatory hurdles in whatever state that you're in. There's a ton of regulation concerning pesticides in various states right now, and of course there's more coming. And as more legal states come on board, whether it's medical marijuana or adult use marijuana, there'll be regulations for pesticides in those states as well. Natureside Cannabis will help you get you regulatory compliant. They're all natural, organic pesticides. Naturesidecannabis.com, a proud sponsor of the Marijuana Times Show. First story we're talking about is what's going on in Honolulu, Hawaii when it comes to guns and medical marijuana patients. This is a story I wrote a couple of days ago. Honolulu police to review medical marijuana patient gun confiscation plan. And to show you how fast things move, that was just a couple of days ago, as I said. And they were... the Honolulu Police Department, the Honolulu Police Chief were going to review their plan to confiscate guns from marijuana patients. Of course, we talked about this the other day. They sent letters out to a lot of medical marijuana patients telling them that their gun ownership was illegal and that they needed to turn in their guns and their ammunition to the Honolulu Police Department. Of course, that created a firestorm online for a good reason. Not only is there a lack of due process, but gun ownership obviously is protected by the Constitution, by the Second Amendment, and to strip people of those rights without any kind of due process at all, just because they're a medical marijuana patient, and the federal government has deemed medical marijuana use illegal, although it is legal in Hawaii and many other states, that's a bit of a problem. So they were reviewing what was going on the other day, and then on Wednesday, Honolulu Police Chief Susan Ballard, as you can see there, said medical marijuana patients can keep their guns, but that they can't buy any more guns. This is from the Associated Press. With information from the Honolulu Star Advertiser, they reported that Chief Susan Ballard said on Wednesday, it's legal for new medical marijuana patients to possess guns they already own, but they can't buy additional guns once they become a patient. What sense that makes, I have no idea. If they're allowed to have guns that they already have and then become a medical marijuana patient, they're not allowed to buy more guns. How would the guns that they buy after becoming a medical marijuana patient be any different than the guns they already own? I'm assuming the guns they already own, shoot bullets and can do harm to people, and whatever logic is used to say that they're not allowed to legally buy guns would apply to the guns that they already own, which further shows what a serious problem this is and how out of whack it is and how much, what a lack of logic is behind the whole thing. Ballard says the department will return firearms to the two people who voluntarily gave them up, but the department will continue to deny new gun permits for marijuana patients. I don't know. It's ridiculous. It's an absolutely ridiculous thing to say that a medical marijuana patient, because federal law, for whatever reason, a long time ago, made marijuana illegal, to say that these people can't have guns is ridiculous. You know, the lack of due process, all of it. The fact that I said the other day that people, that if you can have alcohol, you can be on all manner of prescription drugs, and you're allowed to have a gun. But if you're a medical marijuana patient and you've chosen a less deadly, less addictive way of treating your ailments, well, then apparently that's a problem. But it's not a problem for the guns you already own. Those guns are somehow different than the guns that you would buy. None of this is going to be fixed. Now, it'd be easy to say, well, you can just, pass a law that says, yes, you can be a medical marijuana patient and have your legal right to guns, but that's not going to fix it. The only fix is going to be the fix to federal law. Federal prohibition must end for many reasons, including the fact that it's creating havoc in all of these states. The state of Hawaii says, yes, you can have guns, and yes, you can have medical marijuana. But because of federal law, you're breaking federal law, so therefore you can't have any new guns. None of it makes any sense at all. Federal law needs to be changed. If you remove the federal prohibition of marijuana, all of this goes away. You're not violating federal law anymore if the federal prohibition of marijuana is reversed, repealed, whatever. And this issue becomes a moot point, as all other issues. All the other issues where federal law comes into play and keeps states from either amending their laws or enforcing marijuana legalization or allowing medical marijuana legalization or adult use legalization, all of those problems disappear if you remove the federal prohibition. That is what needs to happen, because until then, your legality, for whatever it's worth, under state law is not secure. Because at any time, the feds can say, no, you're violating federal law, so we can prosecute you on that. All the worry about the medical marijuana writers and the Department of Justice being barred from using resources to go after medical marijuana patients, all of that will disappear. None of that will be a problem anymore if you repeal federal prohibition. That's what needs to happen. And until then, marijuana legalization is not a reality, not a full 100% reality. Continuing on the theme of guns, this is from marijuanamoment.net. Let marijuana travel between states if guns can, according to a Democrat congressman. That's what he says. Congressman Ro Khanna of California said in a clip posted to Twitter on Wednesday, quote, let's think of this logically. If one state allows the legalization of marijuana, does that mean every state needs to allow the legalization of marijuana? I've always thought the Republicans are the ones who defend federalism, defend states' abilities to make laws that they think are going to be best for their people. Basically, this comes from legislation, the Concealed Carry Reciprocation Act that the Republicans are pushing, that would allow, say, someone who gets a concealed carry permit in a state, if they go to another state where gun laws are more stringent, their concealed carry permit would still be good. So this congressman is pointing out that obviously if you're going to do that, then the same should apply for marijuana. If you have a medical marijuana card in California and you go to Pennsylvania where laws are more strict, that your medical marijuana permit from California should be good everywhere. That's if you apply the same logic. And so Democrat Congressman Ro Khanna is applying the principle of the gun bill to marijuana, or at least that he wants to. Khanna represents the Silicon Valley area, said the legislation, as far as the guns with federalized concealed carry permits, he said that the issue is really less about what one thinks about the Second Amendment and far more about what one thinks about federalism. It's, again, you have the problem with federal law, and it's a major problem. I mean, I don't want to be the guy who beats a dead horse about this, It creates a lot of confusion. It creates this story. This story is created by federal law. If it was legal federally, they really wouldn't be talking about, well, my medical marijuana card in California should work here, and so on and so forth. It creates confusion, which causes politicians to call for more laws, and we're going to stack laws on top of new laws, on top of old laws, and the problems it creates are incredible. Repeal federal prohibition. But he's right. If you're going to use the logic for guns, the logic we have to apply for marijuana as well. Now, of course, someone who disagrees with that is Attorney General Jeff Sessions. That brings us to our last story from thehill.com. A leaked video shows the Sessions. This story from the Hill. Sessions spars with DOJ interns over marijuana. Police violence in a newly leaked video. During a video of the summer intern lecture series was obtained by ABC News and published on Thursday, an unnamed college intern asked Sessions why the Justice Department has harsher policies for marijuana and, quote, pretty lax, end quote, policies for gun control when guns kill more people than marijuana. Sessions told the woman she was comparing apples and oranges. He said, the Second Amendment, you're aware of that, guarantees the right of the American people to keep and bear arms, and I intend to defend the Second Amendment. It's as valid as the First Amendment. He then contested claims that marijuana was harmless. He said, quote, I believe last year was the first year that automobile accidents that occurred were found to have been caused more by drugs than by alcohol. Marijuana is not a healthy substance, in my opinion. The American Medical Association is crystal clear on that. Do you believe that? I don't, the intern said. And then Sessions replied, okay, doctor, whatever your name is, so you can write to the AMA and see why they think otherwise. Being very, an a-hole. I mean, Jeff Sessions is an a-hole. I mean, I think everybody would agree with that. Even people that like Jeff Sessions and agree with him politically would agree that he's a bit of an a-hole. I don't know what else to say. Now, I guess his point is that gun ownership is protected by the Constitution and that marijuana use is not. But as I pointed out before, if you are not infringing on the rights of anyone else, you're not committing a crime. The federal government there's nothing in the Constitution that says the federal government can prohibit what people do in their own homes. The next guy who got up there, he said, a man who identified himself as a law student at the University of California, Berkeley, told Sessions he grew up in the projects with a single mother. The student said the police were not afraid of necessarily of their neighbors. He said people were afraid were not necessarily of their neighbors, but of the police. And Sessions said, well, that may be the view in Berkeley, but it's not the view in most places in the country. The intern interrupted Sessions' response. He said that's the view in Columbus, Ohio, where the police just recently stomped a person's head. I hear you, Sessions said, putting up a hand. He said the administration is fully committed to maintain the civil rights for every American. Now, of course, it's tough to talk and speak for everybody, but I would go out on a limb and say that most people they are more afraid of the police. You hear a police siren, you're not filled with a sense of, oh, I'm being protected. This is great. The police are in the area. That's fantastic. Police sirens, whether they're behind you or in the area, they create anxiety. They create dread, not necessarily because of what they're going after, but because interactions with the police can end very badly, unlike interactions with marijuana, which the worst is going to happen. You just end up being sleepy. But to go back to his point about this person not being a doctor as far as medical marijuana, well, Jeff Sessions isn't a doctor either, and yet he has immense power over marijuana legalization and marijuana laws. You don't have to be a doctor to say, well, if someone's not infringing on the rights of someone else, they shouldn't be a criminal. And just because the American Medical Association says that they don't, whatever their stupid opinion is about marijuana, first of all, marijuana use and anything about marijuana is not taught in medical schools. So most doctors don't know anything about cannabis. They don't know the latest research on cannabis. But there are a lot of doctors who have looked into the issue and do agree that marijuana is medicine. So those people are doctors. But doctors don't get to say that if you use marijuana in your own home, that you're a criminal. Doctors don't make laws. And they don't enforce laws. This is the problem when it comes, we have certain groups of people that we say, well, they're going to decide what other groups of people can do if they're not infringing on the rights of anyone else. No, they don't get to make that decision. And Jeff Sessions has power over people who are not infringing on the rights of anyone else, and he wants them to continue to be criminals. And he wants marijuana to continue to be a black market substance, unregulated, untaxed. Drug dealers don't check ID, the whole 9 yards. We've gone over this before about how prohibition doesn't restrict or regulate the market in any way. And again, it goes back to federal law. It's enough. It's enough already. To have some moron like Jeff Sessions have any power over this issue whatsoever is ridiculous. What about people getting murdered and raped and assaulted in this country? What is Jeff Sessions doing about that? He's whining about immigrants. He's whining about who studies show commit less crime than people who were born here. He's whining about medical marijuana. He's whining about marijuana, where no data shows that marijuana users are committing crimes at a rate above anyone else. The fact that this moron, this a-hole, sarcastic moron has power over this stuff is ridiculous. Repeal federal prohibition. The power that Jeff Sessions has should not be a power that any attorney general has over people who are not infringing on the rights of anyone else. We can sit here and talk all day. Well, this doctor says that you shouldn't do this, and this doctor says you shouldn't do that. So what? So what? Since when does the American Medical Association have power over what I do in my own home? If I choose to medicate with marijuana over a dangerous addictive opioid, which apparently the American Medical Association is all for. You know, the 50, 60,000 people overdosing every year on opioid medications, they're fine with that. That's cool. So I would question what they know in the first place. They certainly don't know about marijuana. Or the fact that marijuana is much safer as a medication than dangerous addictive opioids. But in any case, what they don't know or they know, or what Jeff Sessions knows and doesn't know, is irrelevant because it shouldn't have the force of law. Your dumb opinion on marijuana shouldn't have the force of law, and yet it does. That's why federal prohibition needs to be repealed, among many other reasons. Now, I can sit here all day and rant on this, but I'm not going to. I want you all to enjoy your weekend. I'm going to enjoy mine. Thank you for checking out the Marijuana Times show. Thank you for spreading the word about the Marijuana Times show. Thank you to NatureSideCannabis.com for sponsoring the show. All natural, organic pesticides. Go check them out. Go check us out on Apple Podcasts, of course, and on YouTube and Facebook. Subscribe, like, comment, all that stuff. Tell us what you think about these issues in the comments. If you think I'm wrong, tell me why. That's what the comments are for. We'll see you next week here for a new week of the Marijuana Times show on Monday. Like I said, enjoy your weekend. Thanks, everybody. If you want to sponsor the show, info@marijuanatimes.org. Let us know that you want to sponsor the show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening to me rant about these issues each week. And we will see you next week here on the Marijuana Times show. Bye, everybody.